fate.
This is the way. Truth is, I am Iron Man.
Tells me when you're from Memphis.
Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, brought to you by the Drive-In Podcast Network, where we discuss film, TV, and all things Hollywood here on the show. I'm your host, Christian, and I'm joined by my trusty co-host, Devin, and we are here to give our thoughts about the latest movie that hit theaters this weekend, and that is Dune. And before we begin today's show, you can listen to our podcast on platforms around the internet. If you're a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter over on Film Optix. Join our discourse. We have a lot of fun over on those spaces. So, Devin, how are you? You just came back from Arrakis?
Yeah, I think that's where we were. I don't really know what was going on.
I feel like Devin, this kind of thing is usually my cup of tea. And I feel like Devin's like, what did I just step into? I feel like Devin just came out of watching like Game of Thrones, which is essentially what this is, but in space. But, you know, it has its own story and whatnot. It's been around for a while as well. Of course, adapted from Frank Herbert's his novel as well. So, so you've been good. How's your weekend been? Or it's Thursday night. My gosh, I'm sorry. I'm getting my days mixed up. How's your Thursday?
Yeah, it's been a decent week. Had the family over yesterday. Had some fun game night.
Oh, you've been
chilling.
You're hosting now.
Yeah.
I feel it, man. Yeah, for me, I did a lot of packing. Have a wedding to go to this weekend, so we figured we kind of knocked this one out of the park here for a bit for everyone out there before I get into those festivities. So I've been packing all day, watched some Harry Potter earlier, dived into some Hunger Games as well as I was packing. I was like, man, it's been a while since I've seen those movies. So, you know, after watching Squid Game, I'm like, I'm really in a battle royale mood. So that's one of the franchises I've been revisiting, as well as Harry Potter. Of course, you can check out our movie series of Harry Potter that is ongoing here on the show. We've tackled so far Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, and of course, we have Prisoners of Azkaban on deck. But Devin, are you ready to get into our Dune 2021? We have to specifically say, because there is another Dune out there, and it ain't good. It's not all that great. But are you ready to get into our Dune review?
I suppose so.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear that little bad boy, that means we're going to get into spoilers. So we'll do our non-spoiler section, as we always do here on the show, and then we'll go into spoilers. But we'll be back with our Dune review right after this short break.
My planet Arrakis is so beautiful when the sun is low. Rolling over the sands, you can see Spaihts in the air. The outsiders ravage our lands in front of our eyes. Their cruelty to my people is all I've known. What's to become of our world? Paul.
All right, and we are back with our Dune 2021 review, directed by Denis Villeneuve. I believe it's Villeneuve. I've heard of Villeneuve, but I believe it is Villeneuve.
Sounds right.
Yeah. And the writers include Denis Villeneuve, Eric Roth, and John Spaihts. I believe I'm pronouncing his last name right, but if I'm not, I do apologize. And of course, stars Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Zendaya, and Jason Momoa, just to name a few, because this entire cast, it's stacked. It really, really is stacked. It's fantastic. And the story is as follows. feature adaptation of Frank Herbert's science fiction novel about the son of a noble family entrusted with the protection of the most valuable assets and the and most vital elements in the galaxy, which is spice. And we've heard spice before, in other sci-fi stories, especially within Star Wars. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire show summary or the entire film summary there for Dune 2021. So I'm actually going to toss it over here to Devin so he can give his initial reactions about Dune 2021. I'm surprised he sat there. He sounds a little tired over there, I'm not going to lie. But honestly,
oh boy,
I kind of don't blame him because we went to go see this literally at 6 o'clock Eastern/Central when it dropped on HBO Max. So if you don't feel like watching it in theaters, it is on HBO Max for 30 days, and then we'll return back to the platform within the near future. But I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his initial thoughts about Dune.
I guess my initial thoughts are just going to start off with a warning. Like, you cannot go into this blind because I had no idea what was going on, and they did not explain much. Like in the very beginning, they explain like the bare minimum of who these people are, but then there's just nothing. I was just so lost through most of it. Did you read the book? I think I remember you reading the book.
So I started reading the book a few months ago because I knew this was coming out, much so as did everybody else who was kind of interested, because the first adaptation that we got in the early, I believe it was the 70s. Can you fact
80s.
it? 80s. Thank you. It was so it was so bad. I watched the original and I was like, the story is really interesting, but no, I've not read through the entire book. I do have the audiobook. I do have the physical copy of the book as well. I did start reading it. I got a few chapters in, but then I got sidetracked and I think I started reading the Witcher series instead, or I think I dived back into Harry Potter. I can't remember, but so no, I haven't read the entire book myself. But I do agree with Devin. If it is
from reviews I've been seeing, it's very faithful to the book.
Yeah,
it follows it very closely.
Yeah, there were a few scenes that from the very start that I recognized, especially the box scene, which we'll get into here in a bit. But yeah, I do agree with Devin. If you don't know anything about Dune or just like a general like consensus, like basis of what's going on, like honestly, if you like kind of read like an introductory to Dune, or I'm not read but watched a introductory to Dune YouTube video, there's definitely a lot of them out there. It's much like Game of Thrones, like this, like I keep saying, this is like Game of Thrones in space, but at the same time I feel like this is what the Star Wars prequels should have been. Like, it is very political. Even for someone, I feel like someone could easily follow the politics in this a little bit better than if they were to start off with like the Phantom Menace, because there's so much going on in that, and it kind of feels the same in a way, but this definitely has a little bit more action here and there. But it's just like with Game of Thrones. If you don't know anything about it, like, you're going to be lost the first time watching it, and that's totally okay. Obviously, for book readers, like, this is like a dream come true. And, like Devin has said, I have read a few initial reactions. It is very faithful, especially from the chapters that I've read up to the point that I kind of fell off and got distracted with other things. But, this is a movie that warrants a lot of rewatches, and I think that's okay, because I definitely want to go back. There are things that I wasn't too clear on that made me, like, I was still interested in it, but I do plan on rewatching this a few times at home on HBO Max. Got to see how it looks like on the old OLED.
I think that's the issue, though, because even with rewatches, it's not going to help me understand the material anymore. It's just like, I think that's the biggest mistake is they just didn't really cater it to a new audience, which I really think they should have, because obviously the one from the 80s did not resonate with people, because it definitely had hype. It was supposed to be like, oh, it's supposed to be similar to Star Wars, it's supposed to have a huge audience, but it obviously didn't connect with people. So for them to just not try to grab a new audience with this one, I think it's a big mistake.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. For what it, excuse me, for what it is, I do feel like it could, like, they tried with the introductory, like it was a nice little introductory, but much like, you know, we see this time and time again with all these book adaptations, you know, growing up, that's pretty much all we knew. Like every single like popular book was turned into a movie. We had Harry Potter, we had the Hunger Games, we had Twilight as well, because of Winn-Dixie, oh my gosh, Birds of Terabithia, things of that nature. So like we're kind of used to all this, but Dune is such a large world that,
And everyone always says how hard it is to adapt. And
yes,
it's very obvious that that's the case.
Yeah, and for a while it was dubbed that it was unadaptable. Like much like Watchmen, they were saying that Watchmen was unadaptable for movies or TV, and then I guess you can say Zack Snyder proved them wrong. I mean, depending on what cut you watch, but I did enjoy Watchmen for what it was. But yeah, for Dune, it really is a like this is a good movie, but it is definitely catering towards fans who have read the books. Like Devin said, you know, you're going to be so lost if you've, number one, never heard of Dune before or have no idea, you know, what the story is about. There's so much going on in this book. I mean, well, in the book and in this film, because remember, Devin, this is part one. Like even on the title screen, it says part one. So, you know, Warner Brothers has been talking about, you know, everyone's been warning about the success of this movie because of, you know, the dual release as of right now, because we're going to drop this on a Friday. As of right now, it is streaming on HBO Max. So they are looking more at those numbers, which I feel like are going to be higher, but they really need to share those numbers as well, because they didn't do that for Zack Snyder's Justice League at all. And I'm a lot of people are going to be definitely, you know, throwing this on repeat, just, you know, just to get those numbers up. But I can definitely understand like fully why someone like Devin or just anyone else who hasn't really experienced or knew anything about Dune prior would be lost and had a hard time following along with it. So it's, yeah. No,
And
go
it's
ahead.
there's really nothing you can do. Like, I don't think it's really fair to expect someone to read an entire book before seeing a film adaptation of it, because I think that you're supposed to tell that story yourself. I think the director and writer, that's their jobs.
Right. Yeah. Because the first book, which this is adapted from, it's around, I believe, 730 something pages. I will say that for me with Game of Thrones, I didn't start reading the books until after I started watching the show, but that's different because it's a TV show versus a movie. And I don't, maybe this should have been a TV series over another movie adaptation.
Yeah, because then they can actually build out the characters and the world and just have a better job of explaining what's going on.
Yeah, because it gets a little muddled here and there, and like there's just so much going on. But like well, I mean, we'll get into spoilers here in a second, but we kind of I understood the general overall plot, but there's a lot of threads and everything obviously that are building towards part two. And what I think with like Lord of the Rings does really, really well, and that's another example of, you know, a movie adaptation that I think that even for Peter Jackson, I think he did a really good job of the world building. I think the world building was there in Dune, but I don't think it was as fleshed out as we see in Harry Potter or as we see in Lord of the Rings, things of that nature, or even the Hunger Games. Because I literally just rewatched the first Hunger Games today, and it kind of it gives like, much like Dune, but I think Dune goes into a little bit more. It kind of just gives you like a general consensus of like, hey, like this is what the Hunger Games is. There's like a few title cards during the very beginning, but Hunger Games does a really good job of exploring the world. And the concept there isn't really all that difficult because it's just, 24 people battle royale style for this weird parliament thing. But going back to Dune, it is such a large world. I really wonder if they would have. Part of me wishes they kind of would have just made a TV series out of this, much like they did with Game of Thrones. You know, they're expanding that audience, and like they're doing with The Last of Us, and just so many others. You know, that they've a lot of other adaptations. Even his Dark Materials, like the movie adaptation, was terrible. But I mean, even though the series on HBO isn't like a big hit, obviously, like Game of Thrones or Sopranos or The Wire, anything like that, people who have read the books still enjoy it. And for me, for someone, I read the first book like ages ago, but going back and like watching like season 1 and season 2, which covers books 1 and 2, like I think it does a really good job. I mean, it's always hard when you're trying to adapt a book into a movie, because you have to like figure out what to put in, what to take out, what to change, because some things that work well on paper don't necessarily always work well, you know, on screen. Like Sir Jorah Mormont from Game of Thrones, in the book, he's like this stubby, like older guy with like this like blue hair, and it's weird. It looks really, really weird. And like transferring that from like page to screen isn't really going to work. Harry Potter, he has green eyes in the books, and Daniel Radcliffe does not have green eyes, and that would have looked really, really weird. So they kind of worked around that by just saying that, oh, as long as Harry has his mother's eyes, because that's the big thing about him having green eyes like his mother, then that's okay. So they didn't necessarily have to give Daniel Radcliffe green eyes in the movies just for it to be faithful to the books. But for what Dune is, I feel like it is faithful enough, but I definitely feel like they could have done a better job of explaining the world building, because they kind of just jump in. You know what I mean?
Yes, I still don't really know what happened. I mean, there's all these factions, and there's a planet that they were gifted that had
Spaihts. Yeah, so
spice
Iraq,
on it, which is a fuel and a drug or something.
Yeah. It's how people space travel. So Arrakis it's pretty much like this gold mine, and obviously House Atreides was given this task to take over from another house to kind of manage and steward them because of the resources that they have. And you know, we'll get into it with spoilers. So let's actually get into spoilers here, because we're definitely getting more into spoiler territory here. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is your first spoiler warning for Dune 2021. Again, that is your second spoiler for Dune 2021. So since this is dropping on a Friday, I don't blame people if you don't listen to the rest of the episode, but we do ask, if you are interested, plop on your couch, watch it on HBO Max, and come back and listen to the episode. Or if you're seeing this in theaters, which I definitely recommend people should, at least the first time around, and then watch it at home on HBO Max.
Yeah, I guess I should get some positives. It was really good visually. Like, I mean, except for the blue and red body shields didn't really translate well. And I think the first one had that issue too.
I think it did better this time around.
I mean, I would imagine it's been like, what, 40 years?
Yeah.
I'd hope it'd be better, but it just looked a little off every time they would turn it on. And it's kind of just makes the fights more confusing, because it's like, all right, so they have to turn the shields from blue to red, and then they can kill them. But then every time they get hit, it's red.
Yeah,
and there's just a lot going on.
Yeah, and sometimes it made it a little bit blurrier. Like if it was two people fighting, like we saw with Timothée Chalamet and Josh Brolin during the very beginning, I thought that was like a really, really nice scene to kind of show like the fighting art style.
One of few fight scenes.
Yeah, like
which is also a common complaint.
Yeah, so I personally think the fight scenes were sprinkled throughout in a nice way, because much like the Green Knight, because I feel like a lot of people were expecting that to have a lot more action to it, which it isn't, because that's actually adapted from a poem. So a lot of people didn't really know that going in, and nor did I know that going in, but I knew it wasn't. I mean, for A24, I was like, okay, this isn't going to be like the medieval fight scenes you're going to see in like The Last Duel or something of that nature, which had a fair amount. But for Dune 2021, I feel like the fight scenes, you know, between the space battle, not space battles, but the ravaging and whatnot, I feel like there was a fair amount of action going. And,
it's just like,
but it was more about the
climax
politics.
the climax was just so nothing. I mean, is that guy supposed to be someone of note, or is he just some random person?
Who?
The guy that he kills at the end to take over for the Sand People.
Oh, yeah. So that I'm not very clear on myself.
Because it's like, it's supposed to be this big moment that he's like taking over and earning respect, but who is this person he's fighting? They don't tell us anything about it. And then the fight lasts like 30 seconds and he just kills him easily.
Yeah, I will say, what did you think about the pacing? Because I felt like it was good at first, and then I kind of got lost in between. Because, I mean, going in, like, so it quote unquote started at 6, but like 30 minutes for previews, which honestly, I feel like we need to get rid of previews at this point. Especially
AMC has 30 minutes for previews. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. Did you get the Uncharted movie trailer? Because
No.
I did.
But I came in late, so it might have shown.
Okay. Yeah, I got that. No Spider-Man trailer, unfortunately. And then, I got the Batman trailer as well. The new one.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
That was great.
Everyone was cheering for that one for sure.
But yeah, as far as the pacing, I mean, I feel like this might not be directly related to pacing, but I feel like Paul as a character just didn't really earn anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's supposed to just, obviously he's like this privileged son of a duke, and everyone kind of gives him a side eye for that because they feel like he hasn't earned anything. But throughout the movie, he doesn't really do much to earn anything, any respect or anything. Like, there's no real hero's journey here, I feel like, because he kind of, his dad dies, he's not there for that. Then he runs off with his mom, and then they find the Sand People. And there's just not much that he actually does to earn any title that he does earn, which was also a strange few words that were foreign to me. Whatever his weird title was.
Yeah, and there's a lot of mystery with his mom as well, because the box scene where he puts his hand in the box and he's like, oh, like, what's in there? And then the lady's like, pain. That is like literally like a chapter straight out of the book. As well as a few others, but yeah, it can be a bit confusing. And
because like, what did he do to earn what he gets at the end? Like, he just doesn't really do
the
much.
Sand People, because I feel like he's half Arrakis and then half Atreides, I think, because we kind of see the flashbacks, you know, because with the Zendaya being in this movie, she's not in this movie as much, but even in the books,
that'll be the sequel.
Yeah, and she even came out and said that she's not in this movie as much, but he does finally meet up with Zendaya. You know, the visions that he has been having. I think Timothée.
And speaking of Zendaya, if all it takes to become like leader of this world is dreaming about Zendaya, then I'm good to go. Like, sign me up.
There's some nice dreams
I can do
too,
that
right?
easily.
Like, I was like, oh, you know, slow-mo, like,
yeah, she's just frolicking around, just staring at him.
And until he saw the blood scenes, I was like, ooh, those blood scenes. I was like, this is going a little bit too rough. But yeah, I do wish that I just wish that the exposition would have been laid out. Like, I don't need everything explained to me, but then again, like, since this is such a big world and like, you know,
it's supposed to be like this big blockbuster, like seemingly for a wider audience, but it's just like, I don't know, maybe if they told you that you needed knowledge going into it, it might have been better, but it just doesn't land for somebody who goes in blind.
Maybe, because it's kind of like with Blade Runner 2049, which is also directed by Villeneuve. A lot of people didn't know that it was like a continuation of the first one, which I didn't.
See, it's different though, because it's like a continuation of a movie,
yeah.
And this is just like
a brand new beginning.
I wouldn't expect an audience to have to read a book for an adaptation into a movie because it's just a whole new medium.
Yeah, because I mean they did a really great job with Harry Potter. You know, you really don't need to. I mean, like if it prompts you to go back and read the books, that's great because you know there's always going to be things that they obviously take out of the movie itself for the sake of the pacing and the adaptation and whatnot, and some things they add in to movie adaptations that were never part of the book that work really, really well. That happens in in Game of Thrones a lot as well. So it is a bit weird, and I think it is a really good movie for someone like me. You know, like I love like the whole space opera type thing, and it definitely is something that I'm going to go back and rewatch.
This is more like a beach opera. There's not much space going on.
More like a desert opera. I can't even call it a beach opera. Yeah. There's not a lot of water rolling around there. But I will say, that, as we said, we've talked about the cinematography for sure. It looks freaking beautiful. Like,
yeah, and the metal suits looked so cool.
Yeah, like all the suits, the aesthetics themselves, the props.
That's Denis putting in work there.
Oh, for sure. Like he really has that sci-fi touch, which I think he does a really great job with. But Devin, the score was
Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, like it just shouted at you, like it was just there the entire time.
It sounded a lot like the Wonder Woman one, which he also did.
I like this better
when
than
Wonder Woman first gets introduced.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like this.
The screeching, like female noise.
I like this way better than Wonder Woman's. Like, it's for that woman like chanting that like.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, she was. Oh man, that gave me chills. That definitely gave me chills. But yeah, I mean, what did you think about like all the other performances just overall? Like, I mean, I know we kind of talked about Timothée Chalamet, but I kind of think I mean Josh Brolin, it's like anytime I hear him now, he's Thanos to me. It's so
it's crazy to see how like short he is in comparison to Thanos. He's a short king, but I think my favorite character would have to be Duncan Idaho. First of all, that name just classic already. And then Jason Momoa is always just very exciting and enthusiastic in his roles, and definitely did his job here.
Yeah, especially in Apple TV Plus.
He definitely brought the entertainment, like the excitement, because whenever he's on screen, you're like, oh, that's a guy I know, and he's doing fun stuff.
Yeah, I really enjoy Rebecca Ferguson's performance.
Yeah, she's always great.
Yeah, always. Even with Oscar Isaac, I mean, I think he did a good job. I will say for just for the story of Dune, the name Paul doesn't really scream to me as a main character's name.
Yeah, all the names are strange. Obviously, Duncan Idaho.
Yeah, it's
just Paul.
Paul. It's like, hey, Paul.
Josh Brolin's name is Gurney.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
then Jessica is the mom. That's not a queenly name.
It's not. Cersei's a queenly name. Like let's be honest here.
And what even happened to Dave Bautista's character? He's in it like 2 minutes and he just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, the very beginning, like he's there, he says some lines, he yells a little bit, and then you never really see him again. But then
he pops up again towards the end when the weird fat villain is in his bath of oil.
He said, "My dude,"
like being revived.
Yeah.
I don't know what any of like is he like the Jabba the Hutt of this universe? I guess
he was. So the house, not House Arrakis. I'm blanking on the name of the other house that was stewarding or hosting Arrakis prior. I believe he's either I can't remember if he was the emperor or if he was like the leader of the other house that was. I believe he was the leader of the house that was evacuated from Arrakis before House Atreides came through. I believe so. But I mean, I really did like House Atreides for what it was. The soldiers, the just to get up all around. I think this movie, if you're a big sci-fi or lover, like you're definitely gonna love it. If you haven't seen, if you haven't seen the original, I mean, you can watch the original, or honestly, you probably just be better off watching this. If you don't know anything about Dune, like maybe it'll spark people to read the books. Like I definitely want to go back.
I need to get someone else's opinion who goes in blind, because I just feel like it's not possible.
Yeah.
Just my experience, at least.
I believe that is this film's weakest point, is that if you don't know anything about the book, you're going to be so lost. And some people may think it's okay, but even the runtime, I did feel it a little bit because it was around 2 hours and 30 minutes, which isn't terrible. Could have been 3 hours, honestly, but where they left off, I really.
Yeah, what do you think about the ending? Because in the past we've complained about kind of these ambiguous endings where they're confident that they're going to get a sequel, so they kind of just end it off on a lesser note instead of wrapping it up nicely.
So what I usually compare this to would be like Lord of the Rings, because if you have a big story like this where to like, so for Lord of the Rings, I'm not sure if you've watched it, but for Fellowship of the Ring, like each installment feels like it can be its own story, but also has the opportunity to continue the story, especially Fellowship of the Ring. It really feels like a standalone film, but it definitely has that opportunity to move forward. With this film, towards the end, where they're going to totally forgot the name of it, but it is more of like a hopeful thing, because this entire first part of this movie, or part one, feels like a prologue to Paul's journey, and I feel like that's why we didn't see him do much, or not much, but see him earn what he was born to do, because he is kind of not like a whiny little kid, but he's still figuring things out on his own, and he's not sure if he wants to take up the mantle of his house, but then his dad gets killed and he kind of doesn't have any choice. So I feel like I like the ending, because it does usher part one into part two, in hopes that there will be a part two. It sounds like there will be, because like I don't understand green lighting this project if you're not going to make part two. It doesn't make any sense. You're not going
to read the ending and then say, okay, we're not going to do a second one.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And I mean, Warner Brothers has made gambles with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and it turned out great for them. Both franchises have, but I think a little bit more so with Lord of the Rings, because Return of the King swept in the Oscars that year that it won. But I do like the ending, because it is hopeful. I didn't really see it coming, because I didn't know that's where they were going to leave off, but it does have a nice ring to it, or more so of a hopeful ending as to, hey, like this is where the journey really begins. But what about you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just tough when there's an ending, especially for the first entry into a series, for it to end on an incomplete note like this. It just doesn't feel very satisfying. Like I understand maybe if you're the second or third movie into a series and you know that there's going to be more, then you can just kind of set up a movie for the ending to be more ambiguous to lead into the second one or the next one. But I don't know. It just didn't feel like. It felt very anticlimactic, because it's like I mentioned earlier, he just kind of kills off this random guy. That's all it is. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. And of course, like in the books, I'm sure it really kind of just goes into it a little bit more. But I
mean, maybe that is an important character, but they didn't tell me, and I don't know. So
yeah, they really didn't go too deep into it. And I think we keep going back to it, where it's like, the exploration. Like with Harry Potter, like you have everything is there. But then again, Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's the ultimate example of world building.
Yeah. But I will say that for Harry Potter, it is a young adult fantasy, which is easier to digest than something more so of Dune. But I feel like they definitely could have. I think its biggest weakness is that it could have done a little bit better of the world building for people who've never heard of this property and want to see this movie. But like, I keep going back, and I guess I'll just do final thoughts and give my score, and you can do the same. So, we're not here forever, but I like the cinematic, like the aesthetic looks so like damn beautiful. Like the rich, like just oh my god, just the rich background, like Arrakis itself. It's like yeah, it's this. You're in the middle. It's a desert planet, but there's something beautiful about it, and like I mean the themes of the story I really really liked. I just wish they would have explained things a little bit more, but it's like I haven't seen anything of this like beautiful, like really since like Lord of the Rings, like cinematic wise, like it looks amazing. And like it's a better political story than like the prequels of Star Wars. I will say, I feel like it's a little bit easier to follow along because, I mean, what a 9-10-year-old me watching Phantom Menace, we just go to when we were younger, we go to see Star Wars for the lightsaber battles and stuff like that. But like everything else totally went over my head until I got older. Like I had no clue what the Federation was and like everything else that goes into the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, especially for us. But I feel like this does a better job of the political side of like space politics. But with House Atreides, essentially being sent to their death by going to Arrakis and the entire ambush, which was like a great scene, but definitely felt the runtime there a little bit. But overall, I think as of right now, I'm gonna give this like I give it like 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. So this would be like maybe like an 8.8. Definitely need to rewatch it more, especially just for me because I do want to rewatch it again to understand that. Though that's my initial, I'd say like in 8.8 for now, and on rewatch that could change. But what about you? Final thoughts and then your score.
So yeah, as we mentioned before, everything looked like pretty incredible visually, and the cinematography and all of that was really well done. But at the end of the day, for me, it was just more so style over substance. And that was the biggest issue for me. I just couldn't really get into the story. I couldn't follow what was going on. They didn't really bring me into the world like I would have wanted to. So I'm going to go with like a 60 for me. Just tough when you're going blind, I guess.
Yeah, and I totally hear you there. Like it's and I feel like that is a fair score for someone who's never seen or just
because I can appreciate like what they were trying to do. Like obviously they were faithful to the book and they're appeasing fans of Dune, and just the visuals and everything was so well done that I can appreciate it being like a well-made film. It's just the story kind of doesn't live up to it.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't. I do agree with you there. For me, it's just, I mean, I love this. Like, I love the world. Like, it really did intrigue me because I didn't really like the first adaptation that we got. That was back in the 80s. And I was hoping this one would be better. It definitely is. Like I said, on rewatch, I'll probably this will probably be in like it's definitely in my top 10 films of the year as of right now. Because I do love the sci-fi element, whatnot, but I am a little bit more biased towards like the medieval, like high fantasy, modern fantasy stuff. But honestly, I think this is great. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it for what it was. Like I said before, 2 hours and 30 minutes isn't bad, but you definitely feel the runtime, at least on first watch, because I feel like after a while, you're very, the first time you watch something, you can kind of feel the runtime. But like if I go back and watch Avengers Endgame or Infinity War, it's not going to feel like a 3-hour thing for me, especially with when I watch like the extended editions of Lord of the Rings or something of that nature. But yeah, like I definitely hear you there, Devin, and like you did it. You saw it. You saw Dune. We finally saw it. Did you watch this in standard? I actually had to because I have a few things I have to get ready for, so I wasn't able to make the drive to the Dolby Theater, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's the only option I have for AMC here.
Oh, really? Oh, that's right.
Unfortunately.
My gosh, I keep forgetting. Yeah, you're not in Chi-Town anymore, so I keep forgetting that. Yeah, because I thought, and I really wanted to, but it's like a 40-minute drive for me, and I got my buddy coming over. We're leaving early tomorrow to, make this wedding, all this stuff. So, or the rehearsal for the wedding, all this other stuff. So it was easier for me just to drive up the street, go see it and come back. But how was your audience, by the way? Like, was it semi-crowded?
Pretty silent. Yeah, it was definitely crowded. Just not much reactions or anything.
Yeah.
A couple chuckles here and there. There was some semi jokes throughout, not much, but
more so from Jason Momoa, I feel like, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. Like the spitting stuff.
Yeah. He's like, you've been working out? Really? No. But yeah, definitely. So yeah, that pretty much concludes our review of Dune 2021 here on the Film Optix podcast. So Devin, what do we have going up here on the pod within the next few weeks? Are we recording French Dispatch? Are we doing that?
It's not showing at AMC's here yet, so
that's
kind
fine.
Of makes it difficult.
You know what? I think we deserve just a little bit of a break for one weekend, but we'll definitely.
I've had my Chalamet fixed for the week.
Yeah, I have too, for sure. I mean, I'll definitely watch it, but it's not really. We've been doing a lot here within the month of October, so we do have our Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban review dropping on October 27th. That is a Wednesday, so that will be continuing our movie series review, or our I've been thinking of fun little segments to call, like, I don't know, like Throwback Movie Rack, Back to the Blockbuster. I really like that one a lot, so I was like, I've been thinking about some things. But yeah, as of right now,
we got Last Night in Soho next week.
Yeah, we got Last Night in Soho. I'm very excited for that one, for sure. That'll definitely cap off our I guess you can call it Horrorween month of October. That'll definitely cap everything off. And then everything leading to November, we got Eternals. I'm seeing Eternals early, Devin. It's going to be a lot of fun. Very, very excited, but I got to keep it hush hush, So definitely got to be rewatching that twice. I feel like for bigger movies like Eternals, and even for Dune, I feel like it definitely warrants a second rewatch if you are interested in that world and definitely want to kind of, bury your head straight into the sand. Quite literally.
Lots of sand.
Lots of sand. I don't like sand, Evan. It's coarse and rough and gets everywhere.
Maybe that was a jab at Dune the whole time.
They're just making fun of Star Wars Attack of the Clones of Anakin Skywalker. He hates Naboo. No, not Naboo, but Tatooine, excuse me. But yeah, so that pretty much ends it here. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. As I said, this is going to be dropping on the Friday of its official release of Dune. So have a good weekend and stay safe. And that's a wrap for today, everyone. Thank you all for listening. And if you enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay in the know. That was Devin. My name is Christian, and we'll see you guys in the next one.